How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and welcome to another episode where we are playing in, of course, the Brumbar. As you can see on screen, we are grinding through towards that sturmtiger. Eventually, we will get there. I know that the tier 7 is a fantastic tank, and that is the next on our list to really review properly, give our opinion on, and hopefully you in the comment section down below will give your opinion. But today's topic is talking about these new tanks. Are they good for the game? Is the fact that they have that alpha to be able to one-shot lots and lots of tanks within the game, especially at the low tiers, is it balanced? Is that opinion of having one-shot mechanics in World of Tanks balanced? And that is really where the crux of it is, because that involves both artillery, these new tanks, the FV4005 and the previously old tank destroyers like the FV215B183 and the FV4005. So, what is your opinions? Because that is the key factor within this video, is not only having my own opinions as to whether I believe it's overpowered, whether it's balanced, whether they should just stay the same, whether they bring an aspect of the game that's enjoyable, and if you didn't have it, it would be less RNG based and you'd just have kind of a bit more one-on-one action. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think for me personally, the one-shot mechanics are fun. I think that they do bring something to the game, whereby, you know, if you play the tanks, you do enjoy them when you get those shots. And yes, 9 times out of 10, you might not be able to actually get those shots off within the game that you feel like you've really had an impact on one singular person. Obviously, when you deal like, what, 1700 damage with the tier 10 sturmtiger to an opponent, then yeah, it is really fun. But how often are you doing that within the game? Is it actually that game breaking? Do you actually perform that well with the tank? Are you better off just playing in a tank that can consistently do 400 damage over the period of time that you're reloading in something like a sturmtiger? I think that the whole thing with artillery is the ability for it to kind of one-shot one person within the game from full health without them being able to do anything. I think when you contrast that to the sturmtiger line, where you've got the 1700 alpha, where you're one-on-one with someone, and if they miss or they don't pen you, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be able to absolutely obliterate their tank, because 1, they don't have armor, 1, they don't really have much protection, 1, they're not really able to bounce very many shells because the armor's pretty terrible, they don't have the mobility. You've got all of those things coming into one, so if they miss that shot with the 38cm or any of the lower tier tanks where, you know, they've got ridiculous alpha for the tier that they're playing in, if they miss that shot, they have got a long time to just be sat there, and considering they don't get the most hit points at each tier, then yeah, you can definitely farm them up for more than they're going to farm you. And even if they do pen, 9 times out of 10 you can actually just deal more damage than they've dealt to you, because you've got better DPM anyway. And so I think that that is really where the sturmtiger differs from artillery. But I think it's always good to incorporate artillery into the discussion, because they are a fairly similar class. You know, you've got that arc, you've got the ability to deal that damage, whether or not you even penetrate them or not with these tanks. Looking at the sturmtiger, you're able to do something like 700 damage to the front of a mouse, even if you don't pen, which is disgusting. Doesn't even mean that you have to aim, essentially, with those tanks. And I think that is a bit of a problem, whereby there's someone that can do literally nothing wrong. They're literally angling in the best way possible, but because someone is firing the 1700 alpha damage HE round, wherever you hit them, it's dealing 700 damage. Doesn't mean that it's completely overpowered, but I just feel like it's a little bit annoying for any of those heavy tank players that may be going around a corner, they're doing everything possible, but it doesn't matter where they even show a single point of their tank. And then you get people who don't poke a sturmtiger, but then if you're in something like a mouse and you've committed to one flank and a sturmtiger turns up, and you're going to have to either not do anything in the game. So I mean, like, you don't decide to go forward, because if you advance you're going to get penned by the sturmtiger, or you're going to lose a load of health. Either you do that and you literally do nothing, have no impact in the game, and you're going to have to trundle off to somewhere else on the map, or are you going to take that hit and then potentially take more hits from other tanks that are going to be around that corner, and if there's multiple sturmtigers, it's going to be a real pain. I think the splash damage is really high for these tanks in terms of the amount of damage you're going to be taking if they hit you anywhere on your tank, regardless of how much they pen. I think that's a kind of a little bit of a problem with the tanks. Not complaining, I think that the tanks for themselves are pretty balanced. I don't think that they're overpowered. They certainly bring something new to the game. They are so fun to actually jump in with. I think that the whole new mechanic where you have to loop the shells over and the travel speed being so low makes it really frustrating when you don't actually pen, but so rewarding when you do. And I think that that's where Wargaming have gone definitely right with these new sturmtiger line tanks, and that is where I've really enjoyed them. Yes, I've not had, you know, the best damage games where you're dealing like 4k in a tier 6, but hey ho, I think it's something, a learning curve. You know, we're all learning new mechanics that these tanks have. Obviously they are in some tanks like the low tier Swedish TDs with those huge caliber guns that, you know, loop over. You have to kind of aim at the floor at where the tank actually is if you're trying to blind fire or aim in front of a tank. It's really hard to you know, gauge where someone is going to be at the end, because with the tank you have to incorporate the whole where you aim is actually where the shell is going to travel up in the air and land down. So if you aim where the tank is currently, or aim at a point behind where the tank is going to be as it's moving forward, then your shell goes over the tank and lands down on the position behind where it would be. So you kind of have to aim at the floor in the mid section of where the tank would be. So it makes it super hard for you to be able to actually hit your shot onto the opponent travelling at speed, basically. So you're not going to be able to hit light tanks very reliably with these tanks. I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm on about. You've played the game. You know exactly how these sturmtiger line tanks are. Many of you have already got to the sturmtiger itself. So I'm just talking from my personal experience playing up to like tier 7. Of course, let me know your opinions on that. Do you think that they are balanced? Would you like them to get buffed slightly? Would you like them to get nerfed? Do you think that they were a good addition? Because me personally, a fantastic addition to the game. I think they bring something else. I think that the 1700 Alpha is so much better than what the previous FE 4005 and the FE 215B183 brought to the game. I think that it's a more well-rounded tank, and certainly for those of you interested in using these type of tanks, to be able to have that huge impact, high alpha damage is something that I think is really good, because it's not overpowered like it was on the FE 4005. I don't think anyone can really say that it's super overpowered. I guess at the low tiers, because you can one-shot opponents without really anything that they can do against you, because they just don't have the alpha. If you do manage to actually pen, that is. I guess that you could say it's a little bit unfair for certain scenarios, but then again, what about the times when they come around from behind you and they're in an autoloader and they've got more than 600 hit points of damage on something like a Brumbar? They can just take it out in a couple of shots. So there's that. I don't think that they're super overpowered. I think they're a fantastic addition to the game. But talking more about how they compare to things like artillery, I think that they are not really a competitive class. I think they can be competitive in certain aspects in terms of the camouflage. If you're into your stealthy TDs, these are an absolute must-have. 206 meters still concealment in the Brumbar with 428 meters vision range is the one I've set up. That's not even with the maximum that you could possibly use, because I'm not using ventilation on something like this. I don't even know if you can, because they are non-turreted, not entirely sure, but yeah, anyway, I think you can actually, because they're not open top. But yeah, if you use vents, you can get that vision range, the concealment even higher, which means that you can play super stealthy, and hopefully the gameplay behind this kind of commentary is showcasing what the tankers are kind of like, how you can play them. Obviously they're not the best of replays. I can fully admit that, yeah, I've not had particularly too many good games in them. I'm not particularly very good in them. I guess you guys, if you've got replays, you can always send them to me on Xbox, because, you know, you can share your replays. Maybe I can end up actually showcasing some of your content here on the channel itself. And definitely, if you've got short videos, so little clips, you can send them to my Xbox account, and I will try and feature them as a short video on the channel every day, maybe, or once every other day or whenever they come in, I will try and showcase that short funny video as like in the morning's content, so you can watch it before work or whatever you want to do. It will be there as well on top of the actual videos that we do every single day. It's just a nice little addition, I think, and hopefully it'll be funny for you guys to get a little bit more interaction with the channel. Obviously it will be your content that we're going to be serving up to people, and so I guess that you can enjoy that kind of aspect. I think it's really hard to get full gameplays from you guys unless you have a capture card and then you can send it to maybe a OneDrive or something, but I don't know how I'm going to set that up if possible. So if you do have videos or replays and you know of a way to actually send it over to someone, then I will try to sort that out and we can have your replays on this channel. I think that will be interesting to see how you guys play and me commentate over your videos, because yeah, I think it's hard for me to commentate on someone else's video, so seeing how you play as opposed to how I would play is obviously going to be interesting for you guys to understand the different types of play styles, because when I'm playing and doing a review of my own gameplay, it's because I generally think that that's the best way to play, but when you guys are going to be doing it, obviously you guys can be better than me, so I think that that is going to be something we can both benefit from. Anyway, getting back to the core issue of this video and the whole, is the game balanced? I think actually with all of the recent balance updates, I'd think that a lot of tanks have become somewhat more in line with everything else. I think that the additions of upgrades and buffs and all of the changes that Wargaming have been making to the balance of the game have actually been somewhat good. I know many of you are going to be like, what? But they're going to be buffing the Chieftain line very soon. I know, but there are some definitely good changes, and things like the Tiger P, something that I used to hate, absolutely despise the Tiger P. It's not even that bad anymore. I think that there's a lot of tanks that were awful, that were in the game previously. There is not really those awful tanks within the game anymore, don't get me wrong, there are some terrible ones. I'm looking at you, Tog 2, but they're just probably never going to buff you. It's just a meme tank. I think that there are definitely less of those absolutely diabolical tech tree tanks, and I think that that is a positive. I think they're bringing a lot of the tech tree tanks up to the standard of the premium tanks that they've been releasing, because I think what Wargaming have realised is that they keep selling these overpowered premiums and then no one's actually getting involved with the tech tree, which means that no one's actually getting involved with grinding, and therefore they kind of don't get invested into the game trying to get that tier 10, because essentially they could just get a free premium tier 10 from season passes, etc., that is just better than 90% of the tier 10. So I think that what they've done is just tried to buff all of them, so all of the premium tanks haven't been nerfed essentially, but they're not as good in today's meta as they were previously, and I think that's the best way to go about it. It doesn't anger anyone from having their premium tank destroyed, if that makes sense, because they've changed the statistics of what they've purchased. I think that is a good change from Wargaming. I think that it's been actually quite a positive one. Definitely think that the game is improving. It's definitely way ahead of where it was at update 6.0. Would I recommend it to someone that wants to play a console game that is slightly kind of interested in history? Yeah, I think that this game is a good one to kind of showcase. Is it the best one? Is there flaws? Yes, of course. It's kind of one of those love-hate relationships. There are plenty of negatives to the game, but there are a hell of a lot of positives that maybe go unnoticed by a lot of the players. It's easy to kind of put up this wall of just hating on a game, and I don't want to just do that on this channel. I know I've seen quite a few comments saying that recently I've been negative towards the game, but yeah, I am actually enjoying the game. I just think that sometimes it's easy to make those negative comments, and I see a lot of them in the channel comments and on all of Wargaming social media, and I think I'm not trying to say that they aren't warranted, but it's hard to see the good in a game that you want to be the best, if that makes sense. So often, you know, you put out these negative comments, and yeah, I think it's difficult, and I think that this is kind of just me rambling a little bit, but I think it's important to kind of give you my actual thought process. It's not necessarily that the game is awful and I'm saying that the game is terrible. It's just that these are the points that I think need to be improved, and so if I put them out there, they'll hopefully get improved, and then we'll have a better game overall. And I know many of you feel the same way. I know sometimes it probably annoys a little bit of you. I'm not trying to say that it's awful all of the time, But yeah, I think that there's definitely some decisions that I'm not too thrilled about that come out on this game. Sturmtiger line is definitely not one of them. Fantastic, thumbs up from me. Wargaming definitely enjoyed it. It's brought a lot of new players onto the game. I've seen some of the server populations go up. I've seen some of the PC players jump onto the game. I think it's definitely a good change, and we want more stuff like this. Feature it in actual World War II based stuff. Don't just make up tanks like mercenaries. Yes, you can do that every now and again, but try and base it around the historical aspect of the game like we have previously. Wargaming, you know, that's what brought your player base here. That's what a lot of the player base demographic is. You know, they're all slightly older audience. I know for myself, I'm probably one of the younger ones that play World of Tanks. So yeah, you're probably looking at people that are more interested in history and all of the different aspects of war and stuff like that. So I think that's where you need to be focusing your content development, and that's something where I think the Sturmtiger has done absolutely fantastic. And of course, having that derp gun and the high alpha probably helped a little bit, but there we go. Let me know your opinions on all of that we've talked about in this video, and hopefully you did enjoy it for once. But yeah, if you want to check out other videos on the channel, there should be some on screen here where we look through the Sturmtiger line with the statistics and stuff, and then we have another video which will just go through some gameplay with the Brumbar, which you've seen, and a little review of the tank and how to set it up perfectly. But other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in one of those videos. Goodbye.